only mode.
Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Nick Zulovich of Auto Remarketing. In today's webinar, Take Back Your Profits, Change the Way You Source Wholesale, we're going to learn more about this topic and more from DealerMatch's Greg Easterly and Paul Sims. But before we get started, I want to go over a few housekeeping items for today's webinar. Please make sure you've dialed in using the phone number provided in your communication email, or you're able to listen via your PC speakers. We are recording today's webinar and we'll make the recording available to you in the coming days, so watch your inbox for a message that'll have a link to it. You'll be in listen-only mode for this webinar, but we will reserve some time after the presentation for a question and answer session. You can submit your questions at any time through the questions box on the GoToWebinar control panel. And if we aren't able to get to your question today, don't worry. We'll forward that on to the team at DealerMatch so they can respond back to you directly via email. Lastly, if you have any difficulty during the webinar, please click on the hand icon on the GoToWebinar control panel, and one of our team members will be alerted. So let's learn more about how to take back your profits and change the way you source wholesale with Greg Easterly and Paul Sims from DealerMatch. Gentlemen, the floor is now yours.
Thank you very much, Nick. We appreciate your intro and the hosting that the Auto Remarketing team is putting together to put this show on today. We're very happy to be here, and I'm going to throw us into presentation mode and take it away. So as Nick said, today is all about finding profit within the way you source used cars and dispose of used cars in your used car operation at your dealership. And to give all of you a clear idea about what we're going to discuss today, I'm going to go ahead and go through one slide that gives you all of the key takeaways that we're going to discuss over the next 30 minutes, and then we'll do Q&A. But just to respect your time and give you a good idea of what we're going to talk about, this one page will give you a pretty clear idea of all of the topics we're going to cover. So first of all, if you're in the used car business, there's really only two ways for you to increase your profit. One is to grow your revenue, which usually means either selling more cars or selling your cars at a higher price, or reducing costs, either the cost per unit sold or your overall operating costs. For most dealers in the United States these days, the primary focus has to be on reducing costs. We're going to talk about why that's the case and then move on to some ways that you can go about reducing costs to increase your profit. Second, the number one source of reducing costs for most dealers and dealer operations today in the U.S. is in where and how they source the used cars that they're retailing. We're going to talk about why that dynamic exists and how to free yourself of the bondage of the current sources of sourcing and how you can save yourself some money. We're going to talk a little bit about tools that are coming to the marketplace, one of which is the company I represent, DealerMatch, but there are some others as well that we can talk about to help you take back control over where and how you get your used cars and how to reduce the cost per unit to increase your profits. And then lastly, we're going to talk about the dynamics of change, because at the end of the day, taking advantage of these new tools coming to the marketplace is entirely up to you and generally depends on the dealer's willingness to change the way they operate. That's going to be the first half an hour of our discussion, then we're going to go into Q&A. So with all that covered, I'm going to jump right into the presentation and tell you a little bit about me so you know who you're listening to. As Nick said, I'm one of the co-founders and the president of DealerMatch, which is a new dealer-to-dealer trading service that's been in business for about the last 2 years. I'm here with one of my co-founders, Paul Sims, who runs our strategy and marketing and business development groups, and he's going to help facilitate the Q&A part of our session. And I've been in this business for about 17 years, most recently at Manheim. I worked in the Manheim digital product area on products like Manheim.com and OBE.com and Simulcast, which are probably familiar products to many of you. And prior to that, I spent 9 years at Autotrader.com working on the retail side, helping dealers find new ways to merchandise their inventory to retail consumers and sell more cars and save money on the retail side of their business. So my background is entirely in digital and automotive over the last 17 years, and that's led directly to why we started DealerMatch. So I want to start the story about what we're doing here at the beginning of Autotrader.com, way back in the year 2000. And those of you that have been in business for more than 15 years will remember newspapers were a major way that auto dealers in the United States attracted their retail buyers. And the industry, the automotive classified component of newspaper classifieds was a $5 billion revenue category in the year 2000. And the product looked a lot like what you see on your screen. So if you were a retail consumer searching for a particular kind of used car, the first stop you would usually make is in your local newspaper's classified advertising section, where you would get out the grease pencil or the marker and circle the cars that might fit your search criteria. Customers would also buy Trader Publishing Company magazines like Auto Trader and Truck Trader. Word of mouth was a major component. Who had their friends bought from? And then obviously driving around from dealer to dealer. And the problem that this presented for consumers was that they would end up using a lot of time. They would only ever identify a very limited pool of cars that might satisfy their search criteria. And at the end of the day, when they showed up on the dealership lot, they had very little negotiating power. They had very little information to leverage to get the best used car deal they could get. This is what we call a low transparency marketplace. And this was the way the business operated as recently as the year 2000. I give this speech a lot to various dealer groups around the country, and somebody always snickers when they see that picture of the classified advertising section in the newspaper. But we all have to remember that as recently as 15 years ago, this is how the business worked. It seems very antiquated today, but within very recent memory, this was the primary mechanism by which car dealers across the country attracted retail business to their lots. And it was a very expensive proposition. I knew many dealers who would spend thousands of dollars in their newspaper advertising. But along comes companies like Autotrader.com and Cars.com and many other companies that are in the space today, and they dramatically changed the experience for retail consumers. I was at Autotrader when it started, and I remember the process of building up the inventory database so that today, when a customer comes onto Autotrader and performs a search in their local market, within seconds they find thousands of cars fitting their search criteria. What I've got on the screen here is an example search for a Honda Accord within 50 miles of my home market, Atlanta. And this literally 10-second search identified almost 1,300 listings for me to start from to winnow down to get to the car that I want. So what's the result of this? Buyers now have tremendous transparency in the consumer market. Not only can they find the cars that are available, they can find out who else has the car, how they've got it priced. They know what their trade-in is worth. They know what financing sources they have. And by the time they walk on your lot, they're armed to the teeth with information to get a great deal on exactly the used car they're looking for. Now, dealers got a great deal of value out of this transition over the last 15 years in that they're probably spending an average of $2,000 to $3,000 to $4,000 a month to advertise all their inventory through online classified sources versus tens of thousands of dollars per month or per week the old way. But the trade-off is, of course, consumers now show up on their lot much more well-armed with information. So this changed the industry dramatically. One obvious way is the newspaper revenue stream got severely impacted. So from the year 2000, when classifieds for automotive alone were a $5 billion category for newspapers, until 2010, that revenue dropped to $1 billion. Over the same period of time, revenue to companies like Autotrader.com and Cars.com in that category, online classified advertising, grew from zero to about $2 billion a year. So those of you on the phone are probably pretty good at math because you're always putting deals together. One of you or more of you have to be asking, okay, there was a $4 billion drop in newspaper classified advertising revenue and a $2 billion growth in online classifieds. There's $2 billion missing. So when I give this speech to a live audience, I usually pause here and say, all right, where did the money go? You guys are on mute, so you don't have the ability to answer the question, so I'll tell you what the answer I usually get. And the answer that I first get is usually, well, dealers pocketed it. And the next question I ask is, okay, who in this audience feels $2 billion richer today than they did in the year 2000? And nobody ever raises their hand because the answer is a little bit more subtle. And if you followed along the transition from consumers having low transparency to very high transparency and a lot of data and power, you know what the answer is. Consumers now show up on your lot so well armed that margins on used car sales over the last 15 years have dropped dramatically. This is why the point I made in the headlines is so important. For most dealers, there are very few ways to grow retail revenue with consumers as well armed as they are today. You can't raise prices and expect to sell as many cars. And for most customers, for most of our dealer customers, competition for retail sales is at an all-time high. So finding ways to cut costs out of each retail sale to recapture your profit margin is almost always the #1 way that dealers can increase their profits in their used car business. This is the first and most important piece of this presentation that you got to understand why DealerMatch exists and the value proposition that it brings to the marketplace. It's all about selling more cars to your consumers faster with less costs. And if you get that, we'll move on to the next part of the presentation. So that's the story of the last 15 years. Dealers over that period of time have done a lot to adapt their businesses to this new marketplace reality. Almost every dealer I talked to over the last couple of decades has begun to focus on creating more efficiency in their operations. Sourcing cars more in real time to match their retail demand is a good example of that. Most dealers now have a very strong focus on inventory management and are very intensely aware of what they have on their lot, how long it's been there, and what it costs them to acquire and maintain that inventory. And many of them have begun to implement new tools and processes in their dealerships to help them keep an eye on their inventory carrying costs. Some of these tools that you all may be familiar with include First Look, vAuto, and Red Bumper. These are companies that didn't even exist 20 years ago, and now it's a major component of the automotive industry because dealers have such a great need to manage their cost structure to compete in today's market. But when it comes down to it, what you need most in today's economy is a way to get your hands on the inventory you need quickly and efficiently at a low cost. And the point of today's session is that the sources you rely on to give yourself that inventory to run a highly efficient operation have fundamentally not changed in the last 5 to 10 decades. Yes, I'm talking about auctions. To some degree, I'm talking about wholesalers. But let me illustrate the point. This is a picture that was taken at a U.S. automotive auction back in the 1950s. This is a picture that was taken at a U.S. automotive auction within the last year. The process is identical. The fashions clearly have changed. The year, make, and model of the cars clearly has changed, but the process and the way the business is conducted has largely stayed the same. There is one thing fundamentally that has changed, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, and that is the fees. The cost that is associated with purchasing or selling at auction have risen dramatically over the last several years. One other question which often comes up when I talk to dealers about how they source inventory is, why are there so few cars available to dealers in the wholesale marketplace? So let me just illustrate what I mean by that. This is a screenshot from yesterday. I went on to Manheim.com, which is a product I know and love because I worked on it when I worked at Manheim a few years ago. And if you perform a search on Manheim.com and just ask for all cars available across the globe, remember Manheim is the single biggest and best auction provider on the face of the earth. They will present you with usually between 100,000 and 150,000 cars. On this particular day yesterday, there were 114,000 vehicles found globally in Manheim's marketplace. Why is it that consumers searching Autotrader.com with the same search parameters, show me everything, see 1.8 million vehicles available for sale? Something that we don't think about very often, but dealers who are in the business of procuring used cars to sell to consumers have dramatically less choice and less visibility to inventory information today through the wholesale channels that they rely on the most than consumers do in the year 2014. You have to wonder why that's the case, and there's a very simple answer. Keeping you, the car dealers of America, fighting for each and every car on a car-by-car basis is what maximizes the sale prices of the cars and, most importantly, the transaction fees that are collected by the middlemen, meaning auctions and, in some cases, wholesalers. Let me illustrate this. Those of you that have seen the movie 300 might recognize this image. So this is a group of Spartan warriors who are lined up in the mouth of a crevasse, waiting to be attacked by a group of, some say, 1 million Persians at the Battle of Thermopylae in 480 BC. The movie illustrates this quite well. The Spartans do something very clever. They put themselves in this crevasse to force the Persians to come at them in smaller numbers, thereby nullifying the numeric advantage that the Persians have, and at the end of the movie, in effect, demoralizing the Persians and leaving them unable to conduct the battle that they need to conduct with the Spartans. It's a very, very similar dynamic at the auction on a day-to-day basis. It also imposes cost on your business that you simply can't afford. So let me give you one more image just to set that comparison in your head. Here come the Persians. They're storming the crevasse. You see the Spartans lined up, smaller numbers, but ready to take them on. And this is sale day at the auction. Dealers lined up, ready for the cars to come down the chute one by one. When dealers are forced to compete car by car, it maximizes the fees that can be charged, but it limits your visibility into the wholesale marketplace and the inventory that you need to source and deliver to your retail customers in real time. So let's talk about what the costs are that are imposed by the old way of doing business. Let's talk about going to a local auction. If you're going to go to the auction and it's somewhere near you, you're going to spend at least 3 to 5 hours out of your retail lot. Or you're going to pay somebody to go to the auction for you. Talking to dealers, they tell me that generally they end up paying about $200 per car if they use a buyer to go to the auction on their behalf. The average buy fee in American auctions today is about $280 per car. The average expected recon cost per car purchased at the auction, based on surveys I've done with dealers, is about $250. So let's sum all this up. And these are pretty conservative estimates, guys. A trip to the auction means that you're going to incur a cost of at least $500 for every single car you source, not even factoring in the cost of your time. And the cost of your time is an important component. The question you have to ask yourself if you are physically attending the auction yourself is, who is manning the storefront and taking care of your retail business while you're out of the lot? Even if you're in your office logged into Simulcast or an online buying platform, who is managing your retail business while you're watching the cars go by one? These are significant costs that we're all accustomed to because the industry has worked this way for many decades, but do in fact put a significant burden on your business when the business has shifted to more real-time inventory sourcing and delivery of retail results in minutes rather than hours or days and weeks. Somebody always brings up, well, wait a minute, there's a lot of online auction sites that have been created in response to our needs to make it easier for us to find cars, and that's true. I worked on a few of them, OVE.com most specifically. There's also OpenLane and Smart Auction, which are popular destinations. But when this comes up in the presentation, I typically ask the question, tell me what's different about these interfaces other than the fact that they're online. Who sets the rules about which cars are available when? Who tells you which cars you may bid on? Who tells you what the fees are? And then most importantly, what happens when something goes wrong? The same arbitration policies are in place in these marketplaces that you get at the auctions. So I would assert to you that these are effectively the same product delivered online. They don't deliver the key piece of the solution that you need today, which is access to all the cars right now, to be able to source what you need when your retail buyers want it. So we get to the critical question, which is the point of this whole presentation. If your goal was to remake the wholesale marketplace to make your retail operations as profitable as they possibly could be, how would you design it? What changes would you put into place? I know you're on mute, so I'm going to answer some of these questions for you. Top 3 things. 1, we talked about it, transparency. Consumers got it early in this century with the advent of Autotrader.com, Cars.com, and the other online classified sites. This is why they're able to get such a great deal when they come to you shopping for a used car today. You need the same advantages in the wholesale marketplace that they received in the retail marketplace 15 years ago. What that means is you need to see all the cars that you could source right now when you need them, not on sale day, not on somebody else's schedule. Second, you need a marketplace that provisions trust. You should be able to pay for and receive protection when you need it, but there are a lot of occasions when dealers are trading with known quantities, other people that they've bought and sold with in the past, where they don't need to pay for a middleman to stand in between. You should be able to choose when you leverage those trust functions and when you can go directly based on your relationship. And 3, you need solutions that reduce your costs, both in terms of time and money. Explicit costs in terms of fees for purchasing and selling, as well as time away from your retail business. Those both need to be components of your consideration when you think about new ways to source and dispose of inventory. Let me talk a little bit about each of those 3 points. Here's a little bit of an illustration of what transparency looks like in the wholesale marketplace. So I referenced Manheim.com before. It's a pretty good reference because it's the biggest wholesale auction site on the planet. I did a search for 2010 to 2011 Hyundai Sonatas and found 263 of them on Manheim.com. You did the same search on DealerMatch, I found 3,718. So an order of magnitude more inventory. What about a more specific search? 2010 to 2012 gas or hybrid under 30,000 miles. 12,500 of them on Manheim.com, more than 100,000 of them on DealerMatch. And we already did an entire site search. We found 114,000 cars on Manheim.com. There were almost 800,000 search vehicles available through DealerMatch as of yesterday. Normally that number's a little higher, actually. We tend to range between 800,000 and a million. But you get the point. You have to ask yourself, if you could source from a pool of inventory that is 10 times the size of the auction pool, how does that affect your chances of getting the car your retail buyer needs quickly? So what are the benefits of transparency? More cars to choose from means a greater chance of success, which I just spoke to. If you can act now, if you can get a deposit from your retail buyer and deliver the car to them on Friday, you have a better chance of keeping that retail deal together than if you have to wait till sale day next week? Of course you do. You reduce your risk of losing the retail sale when you can act now. Finding frontline ready cars on other dealers' lots versus vehicles that dealers have sent to auction because they couldn't retail them puts an entirely new spin on risk and the condition of the cars that you are searching. It's an important consideration when you're thinking about making offers to other dealers on a site like DealerMatch. And then on the sell side, if you're going to move your age units or trade-ins that don't fit your lot and you can do it faster, meaning today, you can reduce carrying costs of those cars sitting on your lots and you can get them off your lot immediately. The upshot of all this is that keeping cars concealed only benefits the middleman, not you. Take advantage of transparency. It's come into the marketplace. It's something that can help improve your profits. Secondly, trust. We have a product called Deal Shield that we sell on our site. The way it works is really simple. When you're searching for a car on DealerMatch and you find one you're interested in, you can dig into the Deal Shield estimation and purchase as many days of protection as you need, up to 21, as many miles on the odometer that you can put on, up to 500, and even get some transportation reimbursement up to $500. And you can customize the price quote and see details about the risk level of the vehicle, yourself as a buyer, and the seller of the car to determine whether or not you want a guaranteed buyback on any vehicle that you purchase through DealerMatch. If you choose not to buy the Deal Shield, you're buying the car on a trust or relationship basis with the seller. If you choose to buy the Deal Shield, you're protected. It's on or off. It's that simple. There is no vague arbitration process. You decide when you want to purchase protection and when you don't need to. So what does this mean? This means that when you can decide whether or not you need that extra cost of protection, you can decide when to cut that cost out of your transactions. If you're doing business with somebody you know and trust, you can do more deals faster and cheaper. If you're forming a relationship with somebody new, you can use Deal Shield to build that relationship and decide over time whether you need to keep using Deal Shield with that particular buying or selling partner. And lastly, you have the security of knowing you have real protection as opposed to an arbitration process that may or may not go your way. These are the key components of how we handle trust in the DealerMatch marketplace. Lastly, reducing costs. We don't charge any buy fees. We're not a transaction fee-based marketplace. We're a subscription-based marketplace. We have two packages, $3.99 and $5.99 per month. The $5.99 per month includes unlimited selling as well as unlimited buying, which is included in both packages. And we have no contracts. We earn your business every single month. We work with dealers to make sure they're succeeding. The minute that they sign up, we want to get them a car bought or sold to prove the value and keep them coming back to do more and more of their transactions every month. Lastly, we have support personnel here, people who've been in the industry for many, many decades to help negotiate deals with your trading partners, save you time, and let you stay focused on your retail business. That's how we deal with reducing costs and saving you time. How does it work? Obviously, we have a web and a mobile tool that you can use and the support teams that I've mentioned. But what's more important is you add your network, your reputation, your relationships, and your effort, and it generates profits. This is not a tool that you sign up for and forget about. It actually takes work. It takes commitment. It takes you bringing your relationships to the table and putting some effort into learning a new way to source and dispose of used inventory. Because when dealers work together, dealers benefit, and that's where the cost savings and time savings comes from. So I put those in red specifically because I want to make sure everyone on the call hears clearly that signing up and getting profit is not as simple as just signing up. It also takes investment of work and bringing your relationships to the table. couple of dealers to illustrate the key points that I made earlier in the presentation. Fred Blackwell, who's one of our longtime customers, illustrates the more gross profit point. I save buy fees, inspection fees, and other get-ready costs and make more gross profit. He's cutting costs out of every transaction. On the other side, Ronnie Reed is doing more business because he has access to more cars. DealerMatch has been able to grow our business. We can get the specific cars we need for our customers online, meaning sourcing incremental used car transactions from this wholesale marketplace to generate more retail sales. So those are the two key points: more profit by cutting out costs and doing more deals by having access to a greater used car supply. What's the reward? Sign up, put in the work, enjoy increased profits. Or, if you choose, continue to do business the old way. And this is my pictorial illustration of what that results in. Obviously, everybody has their own pace of change that they're willing to adopt. And we talk to a lot of dealers who tell us, you know, I'm comfortable with the way things work. I make a lot of money this way. I don't like change. And what I say to them is, I understand. Keep talking to us, and when you're ready, jump in and we'll be ready to support you. We have up to 1,500 dealers now subscribed and transacting on DealerMatch, trading hundreds of cars every week. It's a really, really exciting time in our evolution, and we've been very happy to work with Auto Remarketing to bring you this presentation today. So with that, I'm going to open it back up for questions, and Paul Sims, my counterpart here, is going to help us facilitate. So if you have questions, type them into the questions box, and we will take as many as we can between now and the end of our hour.
So Greg, first question that came up is, do you offer arbitration for misrepresented vehicles?
We don't. I'm going to leave that slide up. We don't. So our approach is not based on inspections or arbitration. It was really important when we built the business, as you know, Paul, to find a way to give dealers an opportunity to have trust without requiring a physical inspection of the car and without relying on a vague or arbitrary arbitration process. So what we did is we worked with our sister company, Manheim, to create a new product called Deal Shield, which they merchandise at some of their auctions and on DealerMatch. I described it earlier in the presentation, but just to go over some of the key points, every car in DealerMatch will have a Deal Shield estimate, which the member can dive into and customize to have more or less protection depending on what they need. If they pay for the Deal Shield on any individual car, they have an absolute sight unseen buyback guarantee. If the car shows up and they don't like it for any reason, if their retail buyer walks away, if there's undisclosed damage, they can return it to the nearest Manheim location and receive their money back. Obviously, it's an important component of the marketplace, and it's something that we walk dealers through when they sign up to make sure they understand how it works. And that's an area that we've gotten a lot of positive response from dealers, because now they're free to trade with assurance that they can have that protection, or they can decide not to pay the money and rely on their relationships. So we don't have an arbitration process.
Okay, excellent. Next question is closely related to that, which was, does Deal Shield, is that Deal Shield guarantee unconditional?
Obviously, Deal Shield has to protect themselves in cases of collusion or fraud. So in cases where the buyer and the seller are doing business as dealers do, with good intentions and with honesty and upfront communication, it is guaranteed. It is assured. There have been some cases where they've had to investigate transactions that look like collusion where they're not going to pay out based on that. It's very few and far between. And the great thing about Deal Shield is the price is based on the risk of the buyer and seller. So those that act with bad intent in the marketplace tend to see their prices go up over time and get priced out of the marketplace. So one of the benefits for you as a member is if you see a high Deal Shield estimate on a particular vehicle, you can dig in and see why. Is it the vehicle or is it the seller? And if you see that the seller is a high-risk seller, you may choose not to transact with that person. It actually provides a little bit of feedback and risk management benefit to the members directly.
Excellent. And Greg, I think you've started to address this next question that came up, which is, does the price of Deal Shield increase if I return too many vehicles? Maybe you could explain that a little bit.
It's a great question. So the answer is yes. Dealers should use Deal Shield to protect themselves when they need to, but they should not abuse it. Meaning, if you return many, many vehicles over a short period of time, or if you're a seller who has your vehicles returned in large numbers over a short period of time, prices that you see on the site will go up. It's an algorithm that bases the pricing on the risk of the transaction, which is in part based on your return rate. That's also inclusive of arbitration rates at Manheim's locations. So dealers should take comfort that there's a large basis of transactions that this data is based on, but it will respond over time to abuse of the system. So I tell dealers, buy DealShield when you need it and use it when you need it. And in the normal course of business, dealers pursuing cars for retail profit, they're not going to run into trouble. But anybody who is trying to abuse the system or practicing collusion is pretty likely to see their prices go up.
Excellent, excellent. Next question we have, Greg, is why don't you charge auction fees? Why not charge buyer fees?
This was one of the key decisions we made in setting up the marketplace. So Paul and I both worked at Manheim on the OVE product, and one of the things we observed in managing that product, which does have a buy and a sell fee, is that dealers had a habit of trying to go around the fee. So one dealer would list a car, their name was clearly visible, and some buying dealers would call those dealers directly to conduct the transaction to try to avoid the fees. So one of the reasons that we decided not to charge a fee was we didn't want to give dealers a reason to go around us. We want them to feel comfortable transacting online. The second reason, which I spoke to in the presentation, and is probably the more important reason, is we don't want to give ourselves a reason not to provide transparency. We want to give dealers the biggest, widest view of available inventory possible. And to do that, charging a subscription fee makes the most sense for us in terms of monetization. If we were charging on a per-car basis, we probably would revert to only showing you the cars we're ready to show you so we can maximize our fees. So a subscription fee makes much more sense if you're trying to provide an open, transparent marketplace.
Okay, excellent. Next question we have, Greg, is do I deal with other dealers directly?
You can. The way the marketplace works is all members have the ability to deal directly with each other, either by picking up the phone numbers are displayed on the site for our members to interact with each other, or by sending offers through the system. And to whatever degree they're comfortable, they can do deals directly or lean on our trade desk to help them facilitate those transactions. For non-member vehicles who are available on the site as well, we actually stop those offers when they come through the system at our trade desk to give us the opportunity to introduce the dealer who owns the car, the non-member, to DealerMatch and make sure they understand the nature of the offer that's being made to them. It's part of how we grow. It's part of how we make sure that dealers who are receiving offers for the first time understand what it is they are receiving. That said, dealers have freedom to transact online or offline, whatever suits them the best and whatever works best for their retail operation.
Excellent. So I think you brought up a new topic there that maybe some folks may not have understood. There was a question about is there someone at DealerMatch to help me with the offers? Could you expand a little bit on that?
Sure. We have a really great team of folks we call our engagement team. These are trade desk representatives who will receive offers, work with buyers and sellers to ensure that transactions come to fruition. Some months we're capable of converting up to 50% of our members' offers into transactions. Sometimes it's a little lower. It depends on the dynamics of the marketplace at the time and who's making the offer and who's receiving. But we found that it's really important to have people involved in the transactions because that's what our members are used to, dealing with other people. And secondly, that it's important to have members who know the business. So we employ buyers who've been in the business from places like CarMax or who've worked at if desks at auctions who know this business, who know dealers, and can make sure that the transactions flow. We don't rely exclusively on the trade desk, so if members have relationships and they want to trade directly with each other, they're free to do so. But in a lot of cases, we do see the trade desk get involved to help members build new relationships and also to save time when one or more of the members is busy dealing with their retail business.
Excellent. I think that provides a lot of clarity. We do have another question about where did all this inventory come from? So you showed almost 1 million cars.
Yep.
How do you come up with that?
Great question. So when we built the business, one of the things that we knew we wanted to achieve was to not ask dealers to have to list cars for this marketplace. And we came to the realization that dealers over the last decade, over the last 15 years, have put a lot of work into making sure that their inventory is always visible to retail customers. So what we did was we tapped into those data feeds. We have relationships with big classified advertising sites like AutoTrader, and we repurposed that data to provide a wholesale dealer-to-dealer marketplace with some additional data that only dealers see. For example, age of units, wholesale marketplace values, MMR, and other wholesale-oriented data that dealers would need to trade. So it's the same data that dealers are in the business of publishing to consumer audiences, but augmented for the purposes of dealer-to-dealer trading. That way, no dealer has to list their car in our marketplace to receive an offer from another dealer. But if they choose to merchandise their cars, if they choose to add photos or put a floor price, they have the ability to do so. But visibility is automatic.
Okay, excellent. But Greg, what if I've got a fresh trade-in that I haven't listed with AutoTrader or something like that? It's a car I never intend to retail. Can you guys help me with that, or does that not fit?
Absolutely. That's a great use of our mobile application. We have an iPhone app, and we will have an Android app within the next month or so, where you can scan the VIN, take photos, do walk-around video. You can add as much or as little data as you want, and then you can either push the car to your trading partners who you've set up through DealerMatch. So you can offer to one or more people that you have personal relationships with, and or you can publish it to the site so that the entire audience of DealerMatch has visibility to your car and can make an offer. So you can get the car on the site the minute it's being traded if you want it.
Excellent. Okay. A couple of folks asked questions about transporting the car. How do I, when I determine I want a car, I work out a deal with the seller, how do I get that car from that seller to my lot?
When we started the business, we thought this was going to be a major area of focus from our customers. And what we found actually is the dealers trading on DealerMatch typically have a system that they're comfortable using to transport cars between themselves and their trading partners. So that is to say there hasn't been a lot of demand for it. That said, we do have a partnership and a link to Ready Auto Transport where dealers can get quotes on one or more vehicles that they want to move based on their transactions on DealerMatch. So dealers handle it as they see fit. If they want help with it, they can use our link to Ready Auto Transport or get a quote from another provider.
Okay, excellent. So it's flexible for them to choose whatever suits them. Excellent. Some other folks have asked some questions about other aspects of wrapping up the sale. Once they've identified the car and they've decided they want to buy it, they work the deal with the seller. How is payment handled? Does everything flow through you? How is funding handled? You know, cars aren't cheap.
Similar to transportation, it's a dealer choice situation. So dealers who have relationships, who have traded a lot of cars with their trading partners, can choose to do it directly. If a dealer would like, they can pay a little extra to have Manheim facilitate the transaction, handle the title and the funds transfer, and even put it on their floor plan. One of the great benefits of DealerMatch is if you choose that option, you're able to floor it up to 100%, similar to an auction transaction. So a lot of dealers like it specifically because they can now put those cars that they were already trading with other dealer partners onto their floor plan. Manheim charges a little bit of extra money for that, but the link is available during your checkout process directly from DealerMatch, so we make it really easy for them to take advantage of that.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, and they can use any type of service they would use in the lane.
Yeah, any floor plan that that they can use through a Manheim marketplace, they can use on DealerMatch.
Okay, great. Could you talk a little bit about the condition of these cars? What how would they compare to what I would see in the lane in terms of the types of these vehicles and how that would compare?
This is a really important question, so I'm glad it came up. So these are retail-ready vehicles. The vast majority of the cars you'll find on DealerMatch have been reconned and are sitting on the front line of a dealership somewhere in the United States. Very few of them are fresh trades, and they are marked as such wherever possible. 78% of them, based on the analysis we've done, are rated AutoCheck Best. So the quality of the cars you're going to find on DealerMatch is going to be a step higher than what you would see coming down the lane at an auction, particularly in a dealer sale. A dealer sale at an auction typically is the inventory that was either traded into and didn't fit or was not successful in being retailed on another dealer's lot. So one man's trash could be another man's treasure, but it usually requires some work. In our case, these are cars that have not yet gone to the auction. They may be aged units that were reconned and have been sitting on the lot for a while, or they may just not be in the right place. They may be in the wrong market. So generally, we find that the quality of the cars coming through DealerMatch are a little higher than what dealers are getting in the lane, and that's part of the coaching we give dealers when they become members on how they need to think about the value of these vehicles as they make offers, because these are not auction vehicles. So we do provide Manheim market report values, for example, on the site to provide context. We actually find that dealers who make a little bit higher offers do better and still make more money because they haven't had to pay for the fees, and they generally are going to have lower recon costs. Requires a little bit of experimentation, a little bit of trial and error with our customers, but once they get it and they bought or sold a few cars this way, they see the profit improvement, and they're off to the races.
Excellent. Greg, you brought up something a moment ago about in response to the question of where these cars come from, and you said that these are retail listings. Some dealers have asked in the past, well, I don't want to look at a bunch of retail listings. What if I need a car literally today, and I need to know for sure that that seller really wants to sell it? Do you guys have anything that will
Sure.
help with that type of really, really immediate need?
Sure. There's two things on the site. One is there are a number of cars, up to 1,200 to 1,500 cars at any given time, that are marked ready to move, which means the dealer who owns that car has specifically marked it as a car that they would like to entertain wholesale offers on and is mentally prepared to deal on. Those cars are flagged and prioritized in the search so that you find them more easily than the rest of the cars. That's the first place I would point a dealer to say this is a really good source of liquid inventory that you can get your hands on right now. Secondly, every week we have an event sale. So for members who have vehicles that they want to move quickly and who like the experience of a timed auction-style event, we run an event sale every Wednesday and Thursday on the site and let our members push cars into that event. And we keep track of the bids, very similar to an OVE or another online-type marketplace. And then we move those cars at the end of the second day. That's another really good opportunity. And that's a case where if a dealer has those kind of cars, they probably want to step up to the $599 package because it gives them unlimited access to it. Another good place for buyers to be able to find cars that they can get right now.
Correct.
We generally have between 100 and 125 cars every week, and we'll see roughly a 50% sale rate, similar to what they would see at a dealer sale at the auction.
Great. And the buyers, when they're buying this event sale, they're paying what types of fees?
No fees. It's all part of their subscription. Access to the entirety of the marketplace is part of the subscription.
Excellent. Okay. So someone else asked a question about vehicle history reports, whether vehicle history reports are available to users of the site, members.
They are. Carfax and AutoCheck are integrated into the search process, so you can pull them either on web or mobile. You will need your username and password to enter it into the site from either Carfax or AutoCheck, but very easy once you've entered that in. You have access to the VHRs. You can also do it on cars that you're scanning to add into DealerMatch, say the fresh trade example that we talked about before, so you can pull a VHR as part of that process as well.
Excellent, excellent. One question that was asked is if I'm used to buying from a wholesaler, you talked a lot about auctions. If I'm used to buying from a wholesaler, what might be some of the differences, or what things might feel similar and comfortable to me, and what things might I need to sort of adjust mentally to?
Well, wholesalers are obviously an interesting and important part of the business because for many, many years they provided liquidity between dealers without having to go through the auction. So I think there's really two answers. One of the familiar things is wholesalers base a lot of their business on relationships, and DealerMatch was very much built to allow dealers to leverage their existing relationships and their reputation to make more money. So we have had some customers, some members who are wholesalers jump on board specifically because they can increase the size of their network and the number of dealers they have visibility and access to improve their results and broker more deals between dealers. The other side of that is we feature transparency, which typically is not part of the wholesaler's solution set. Typically they have a set of cars they've bought from customers that they're trying to sell to other customers of theirs. So that's more similar to how the auction does its business. It has a set of cars that are available for sale now, and that's what they want you to buy. We're more in the mindset of providing you access as a retail dealer to all the inventory you could possibly need to drive better retail results right now and let you pick and choose which ones you want to make offers on. Sometimes that rubs against the wholesaler business model, and we've had a few wholesalers tell us that we represent a threat. But like I said before, we've had a few who jumped on board and said, hey, this is a huge opportunity for me to do more of that business.
Excellent, excellent. We do have a question about title. So when I'm buying a car on DealerMatch, how do I know that the title on the vehicle is going to match what I think I'm buying? If I'm buying a clean title vehicle in my mind, how do I ensure that that happens?
I would say two things. One, if you are doing business on DealerMatch with people that you know and trust, that shouldn't be an issue. If you're doing business with somebody you don't know and you have that question, it's probably in your interest at least to pay the extra fee to have Manheim handle the title and the funding and or buy a deal shield because you may have additional concerns or trusts trust gaps with your buyer or your seller. And that would be a good case where paying the extra money to have that assurance is worthwhile.
Okay.
But the good news is it's your choice. So you don't have to pay the cost if you don't need it. And if you do pay the cost, you get absolute guarantee with DealShield, as long as you're playing by the rules.
Okay. And how would explain again how DealShield might be different from, say, a PSI that any of us are familiar with in the lane PSI experience?
So the inspections-based process at the auction typically results when something goes wrong in an arbitration. And the key difference between DealShield and that process is certainty. If you're playing by the rules and you've paid for a DealShield and you want to return the car, you will get your money back. It's that simple. There is no arbitration. There is no arbiter who's going to decide on your behalf whether or not you get an accommodation or some goodwill. You simply get your money back. If the same thing occurs from a car you bought in the lanes, whether or not you bought the PSI and you go into arbitration, it's a little bit of a crapshoot to determine who is going to win and what level of accommodation you will get, even if you win. It's much more vague. The benefit of DealShield, from my point of view and from our customer's point of view, is when they pay for the extra security, they get an absolute assurance that they can get their money back if something goes wrong.
So it's not just a specified list of these 3 things were wrong with the car. Okay,
No.
you can return it.
Any reason. If you don't like the car, if your retail buyer walks away, if you simply change your mind.
Excellent. Excellent. I think we have just a couple more questions here. So is your site mostly franchise dealers or mostly used car only dealers?
It's a great question. So it's really important for the DealerMatch marketplace to be liquid to have a broad cross-section of all different dealer types. As you know, Paul, there is a lot of transaction volume between dealers every year in the United States, roughly 10 million cars a year being traded between dealers outside of the auctions. So there's a ton of opportunity, and it takes all shapes and forms between all different types of dealers. So there are lots of nooks and crannies, lots of independents who are buying trade-ins from the franchise guy, lots of opportunity with like-make franchises who want to trade inventory on their lots, lots of dealer group trading opportunities. All of that is to say we have a good balance of both franchise and independent dealers of all shapes and sizes across the country. It's open to anybody who is a dealer in the United States.
Excellent. Excellent. And last question that was teed up was when I think about other dealer-to-dealer marketplaces that might be out there, if I'm thinking of changing how I source, as you propose we should today, what things should I be looking at? You guys said you're not the only company that helps dealers do this.
Mm-hmm.
What should I be looking at to measure the right dealer-to-dealer sourcing partner for my dealership?
It's a great question. I think the 3 things that we identified in the presentation are the most important. Marketplaces that feature transparency are aligned with dealers' needs, meaning dealers need to source cars quickly and cost-effectively. Transparency allows that to occur. If it's a marketplace that you're looking at that wants you to look at a defined list of cars, a small number, and only the ones that they make money on, there's a problem. There's a rub. That doesn't work in the dealer's favor. So look for marketplaces that feature transparency, give you broad access to as many vehicles as possible and the tools to transact the way you want to transact. The second thing is the trust mechanisms. Who is able to provide you with either the option of saving costs or paying for extra protection when you need it? It's one thing we're very proud of in our partnership with DealShield is that we have that ability. If you're trading based on your relationships and you can afford to go without protection, you save a lot of money and you save a lot of time. If you need that extra protection, you actually get it when you use DealShield. So any marketplace that features that as one of the focuses, I think, is a good one to explore. And then lastly, ones that are clearly aligned with dealers' needs, meaning I need to sell more cars faster at less cost. So I think a lot of that is around the ease of use, time savings, meaning cars are available for you now. The ability to leverage your floor plan is clearly important for dealers. So you can expand the amount of inventory that you have available and leverage your floor plan, which is what it's designed to do. And most importantly, probably save on the fees. If the average cost per car you acquire includes that $280 average buy fee at the auction, that's pressure on your margin that you can't afford if you're a car dealer in the U.S. today. So look for marketplaces that don't nickel and dime you.
Great. Thank you. Well, that's the questions we have, Greg.
Excellent. Well, it's been a great session. Nick, I want to thank you and Auto Remarketing for hosting us today.
Definitely an excellent job by both of you. couple last points. Presumably, this is available to dealers throughout the United States. Is the platform available to stores in Canada? And if it's not, is that a potential future expansion for DealerMatch?
It's a great question. We do have a couple of our members who are in Canada who are explicitly using DealerMatch to source vehicles from dealers in the United States. And in those cases, it does work, and we're happy to have them as members. The issue today, Nick, is we don't have inventory from dealers in Canada, so we can't help them sell to other dealers in Canada. To answer the second part of your question, I think, yes, it's an opportunity for us in the future, but today we're focused on the U.S. market.
Okay. And finally, how can dealers get in contact with DealerMatch if they have further questions or want to get started?
First thing I would do is direct them to the website, DealerMatch.com. There is a 800 number on there. They can contact us if they have questions, and there's a form they can fill out if they want to get more information or a demo, and we would love to walk them through it.
Excellent, excellent. And just a reminder that we have recorded today's session, and we'll make that recording available to you as soon as possible, that you can review the great information that Greg and Paul shared with us today, and you can forward on that link to other people in your store to consider to possibly get involved and as you described, Greg and Paul, increase those profits with a new way of doing business. So thank you to the both of you, and excellent job.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.
Thank you. Have a great day.